All right, guys, welcome to the sixth meeting. Today we're going to be talking about validation and authentication. Okay, so just to start off, Morris, what do you think the difference is between validation and authentication off the top of your head? You don't have to be right.
So to validate something, it's to make sure it's true. Something's true. So someone says something, and then someone else validates it by saying if it's true or false. And then authentication must be.
And what about authentication?
I think it would have to be something like a new variable. Like, does the variable exist already, or does it not? Like authentic.
So you actually got both right. A little bit off, but you are on the right path. So validation is, for example, if we tell this email to be a string, right? The input that has to be passed from the front end has to be a string. It cannot be a number. If it's a number, it's incorrect, right? So we're probably, yeah, I think it should be worth to go over basic validation for what is it called, for just for today. Let me see. Okay, so to use validation, we use a library called a dependency that's called express validation. So express validator, sorry. So we go into CD server, okay, and then we do npm install express validation validator, okay, and then I believe we do ss. If you go into the website, you can actually see them. You can actually see. So you do npm express validator, and this would be mostly for input purposes. So for example, when doing like a sign up, right? So this is correct. Okay, it used to be like, it used to have like a dot save, so it saves for production purposes, but not anymore. Okay. So we bring in the express validator. Okay. And remember that the way that we see if our dependencies are to exist, we check on the package.lock. So over here, it should appear as express validator once this is done. Oh, why hasn't it gone? Interesting. Oh, it's because I'm doing it on Diana's branch. Okay, that's not bueno. Okay. It's still importing everything. Okay. So that's not good. I have to do that on main. Yeah. So this part of what changes. Yeah, it's not even done yet. Give it a second. There you go. It actually deleted them. So stash of changes. I need this to be done, or I can just delete it. Either one. Okay. So now that I made sure that all that's gone, let me go into master, and now I can implement it there. Okay. So just making sure. Okay, I'm in master now. Okay, so let me open up a terminal. We do cd server, and then npm install express validator. So why do we need to validate things on the server? Okay, so on the front end, you can validate inputs, but it's very easy for a hacker to come in and to just break the front end. And so the second wall protection is actually the backend. Just fix this. Okay. And so if you check right here, we have Express Validator working. So now, the way that we use it is by first of all importing const. Let's call it what do I call it here? Actually, we're going to be passing two items, which is going to be the body and the validation result. Okay, and that is it's going to require Express Validator. Okay, that's how you import it. Why do we need the body? So the body is going to be mimicking these inputs right here that are going to be passing from the front end. But we're actually going to call it right before it actually passes it. And so the way it works, let me just, so it's actually right here, right after this. I'm gonna put another comma, and in between, we're gonna be adding an array. Okay, I'm just gonna do one value, just as an example. And then you'll see what I mean. So if we do the body, we're gonna be passing the email as a string. And by the way, this is how like this dependency works. So okay. So then we would do trim, right? Trim dot. And this, if there's any spaces within the email, right, then this will cut it down. So in other words, if we have an input that let's say password, but let's say the person typed password like this, then the trim method is going to actually combine them together like this. It's going to remove all the white spaces. Okay, so that's what that does. Okay, then here, so for email specifically, we can do not email. So these are all if statements in reality. Okay, so if we say if the email is actually not an email, then we're going to send a message that says if it's if it's empty, actually, yeah, if it's not empty, so if the email value is empty, then we're going to send a message that says field cannot be empty, and we're going to say bail. What does bail mean? Bail means that if this condition is not, if the email does not qualify, does not meet this qualification, right? If it's empty, then this message is going to show up as an error, and the whole entire operation is going to stop right here, right? Now, if it passes, then we're going to say if the email is actually an email, okay? And then let me see. And then if not, then we're gonna send a message, an error message that says this is not a valid email. Okay, and just like before, we're gonna bail. So these are all validation for validation purposes. They're actually like saying, it's like saying, like, for example, okay, so we have the body for email. We're gonna first trim it, and then we're gonna check if it's empty. If it's empty, then we're gonna send this message, and we're gonna stop the whole operation. So the next time that the user comes in and tries to, let's say they put a value, right? Okay, so it's not empty, so we're gonna continue. Is it a valid email? If it's not, then we're gonna basically send this error, and we're gonna stop everything right here, and we continue. And this is how you validate. This is how you're going to validate different emails, I guess, for this purpose. So then we can say normalized email. This would actually help to, when you normalize a value, it's basically able to take intake, what do you call, upper and lower camel casing.
Just I guess when I have it on the house, it's like.
Sorry about that. Okay. And then, okay, so that's that for now. Okay, so for this one, we don't really need a validator. Like this is just going to allow, like for example, if the email is actually like, let's say, this is my email. If it has upper and lower cases, it normalizes it, so it makes it all lowercase. Okay, and you can also add 2 lowercase, which would help the case. It would help this. Okay. So this will be your validator for email, right? And so the way that we can test this, okay, I mean, there's other things that we would need to add, but I'm just trying to cover what validation is. Okay, let me just add the one thing that we also need, which is we need these lines. We need to create a new constant that is an error, and now we're using the validation result for every request. Okay, if there's an error, like so error is going to be, I guess, like a new array. So we're going to check if errors are not empty, then we're going to return a new array with all the errors. Okay, if this does not meet the criteria, then the whole operation continues. Okay, so let me try to test this out. It's probably not going to work. We need a few more things, but I want you guys to find that out. So I'm going to give it to you guys as homework, but this is pretty much how it works. Okay, so the request, I believe, let me see the response. Yeah, the response is, let me try to do something right here. We're catching the error. So we have a try catch, right? And then, so let's do something like this. I'm just trying to catch the error, see if it shows up. Okay. Yeah, it's not catching it. So we need a few more things. Let me see if I can get them to you guys. This is a bummer because I wanted you guys to do it yourself. Let me see. So, okay, I'm gonna switch this to this for you guys. Okay. So I need to add a few more things. For this, I'm going to create a new file, a new folder, and I'm going to call it, we're going to call validations. Actually, let me call this exceptions. Exceptions, and I'm going to create a new file inside. You guys don't have to really do this, but this is how we're setting up the entire exceptions for the validation. Okay, so validation.js, and I already have the code, so I'm just going to paste it in here. So what this is saying is that for every call, right, we're going to be calling whenever the method validation exception gets called, it's going to intake all the errors. It's going to send a status folder 400. It's going to say invalid request, and it's going to send all the errors. Now, on top of that, we're going to create another folder that's going to be called errors. Oh, yeah, error. This folder is going to communicate across the entire app. Okay, so error handler.js. Okay, and I also have the code for that one. And this is what this is called. Okay, and now this is going to be called across the entire app. And how do I know that? Because we're going to put it in right now. 1 second. right here. We're gonna go into server. I'm going really fast because I want, like, you guys don't really have to worry about this. But if you look at the code like later after the meeting, then you can actually appreciate what's happening here. Okay. We're gonna put it after every route. And now the error handler will be called across the entire app. Okay. So, and then you'll see what happens. So right here, and then validation. Okay, and then I also need to make one last thing, which is adding the validation exception right here. Exceptions, yes. So this should be correct. So now if I turn on the server, npm start, right? Okay. If I turn on the server and I try to test this out, remember the email's empty. Okay, we get the error. So all that I did right now was basically to get this. So this is what's going to be sent to the front end. But what we care about is this line right here. Email cannot be empty. So let's actually fill that email out. Right, let's put like a character. This is not a valid email. Okay. Let's put an at. Right, didn't work either. So let's put gmail.com. It passes. That's how we do validation in the server. Okay. So now you can actually utilize this line right here, and you can add a custom validation to actually check if an email has actually, like, if it actually exists already in on the server. And so that's part of a video that I'm going to give you guys later, but that actually covers that that subject right there. And so you guys can actually follow through with that. But so now the validation for sign up is like the base, it's done. Okay. Now, obviously the next person that gets assigned this has to add in all these values right here, you know, and that's the whole part of like creating the card. But now there's a good base. Any questions? No, I went really fast, but if you guys see the video, then you can actually, and if you actually go through these files right here, you will be able to appreciate a little bit more of the code. So just to recap, this one, like the error handler, goes across the entire app. Okay. We can actually set it up so it actually, even when there's a 404, it'll display the 404 like this, like in this format, like this. Okay. And actually, I think I inputted this, and I think I don't need it. Let me check right now. Yeah, I don't need it. And so what it returns us is the message. Like if I put right here, this side by side. If we go over here and we go to the exceptions, right? It's returning us the status code, which is the status code is 400. It's returning us invalid request, and it's returning us the errors. In this case, it's validation errors. And if we go to the error handler, we get we create the validation errors, right? We pass the errors across the entire app, right? And then we input that into the array of validation errors. Like we create an array. And so now here we say that for every error, for each error, right, we're going to input it. We're going to input the parameters of it into a message. And we're going to be passing that as the body that gets sent back to the front end, which is this. Okay. It's a little bit complicated. The more you look at it, the more it makes sense. I promise you that. Okay. So that is the basis the basis of validation. Now, I want to touch base with authentication. Authentication is different. Okay, authentication is okay. Let me just explain. So I have a picture right here, right? So we have three different ways to authenticate a user. Okay, when I say authentication is when you authenticate a user, it's what keeps you logged in. Okay. When you log in, let's say to your Gmail account, right? That Gmail account, let me see if I can actually pull this up. Let me go into, I guess, MongoDB. Right. So if I go to inspect, right? And if I go to application, they're using cookies. Okay. This is what keeps me within my account logged in. Okay. They're using a lot of cookies, but like this is what's keeping me logged in. If they like, for example, I think there should be one called access session timestamp. I think if I were to delete one of these, it should log me out automatically. I mean, let me just try to see it for demonstration purposes. Let me just try to delete all of them. Right, and then if I delete this one, yep. So if I were to make any call right now, it logs me out. I'm not authenticated anymore. You see, it tries. I mean, that's a pretty smart system. You know, they have it like to refresh the user. But that's what authentication is. Okay. So when we talk about authentication, there are three ways to authenticate. You have cookies, you have local storage, and you have session storage. Okay, these are the three places that you can actually store your validators, your authenticators. I'm sorry. So what are cookies? Cookies are these right here. Okay, a cookie, like if you see right here, if you see you have cookies. Cookies are super small. I think those are kilobytes. Yeah, that means that they're super small, but they can be read on browsers that use HTML4 and HTML5, which is great. They can be accessed from any window, right? And you can actually set them to expire manually. And so once they expire, they disappear, right? Here's one example that I can show you guys. So if I right here. So the way I have this system set up, right? Go to the cookies. So I have an access cookie to refresh to basically disappear within 15 seconds, and then you'll see exactly what I mean. Let me actually not use the admin. Yeah, no, it doesn't matter. Okay, so you see the access cookie right here. It's gonna refresh within 15 seconds, and it's gonna disappear on its own. Any second now. There you go. You see, and it disappears. This one does not disappear because I set it for 24 hours. Okay, and then it's a whole theorem. It's a whole theorem. Not a theorem. It's a paradigm. What I'm doing, but I'll get to that later. So now, cookies are very small. You can set them to expire like automatically, and they'll disappear. And then you can actually store them on the server and on the browser. Okay, so that's good. Now, when you send a request, you can send them with it. Like you can send cookies with them, like with it. Okay. Now, another way to store your cookies or JWTs or sessions, it could be on the local storage, which is right here. This is your local storage. Okay. This is another way to store it, but it can be accessed from the front end automatically. Okay. So when you store something on the local storage or on session storage, it's actually accessible, not through, it cannot be accessed through the server. It actually is accessible through the front end, right? Which is very useful. But now, what's the problem with local storage and session storage? There's these attacks that are called XSS attacks. Okay, cross-site scripting, which they basically, hackers can come in and they can actually obtain your they can actually come in and obtain your JWT, you know, like all, like they can they have access to all this data, so they can just basically write a little script that reads JavaScript, and they can take all that data and they can actually log into your account and hack it. Okay, you don't want that. So it's very bad practice to, I mean, it also depends. There's some arguments that you want to keep cookies or JWTs or your information in a local storage. Some people say to keep it on the session storage. Some people say to keep it on cookies. Everybody differs. You know, it all depends how you create your application. Okay. Now that brings me to session storage, right? So the difference between local storage and session storage is that local storage, even if you close the browser, like this will remain inside the browser, like this information. Okay, so if you're passing an authenticator, like a key to authenticate, the key will still remain within your local storage. However, if you do it on a session storage, as soon as you close this browser, this information will disappear. It remains on for the longitude, for the time being of the browser, right? If I were to close this window right here, then this will disappear on the session storage. But on the local storage, it remains, and like it remains there. You see, access token. Then somebody can come in and basically run a script on this. Okay, so that's very dangerous. And then what is it called? Then cookies, actually, I believe, so in this example right here, I'm actually passing cookies as the authenticator, right? Now, what makes this different from everything else, right? That I'm using HTTP only cookies. HTTP only cookies cannot be read by JavaScript. So a hacker can't come in and read that cookie, right? Because it's HTML cookie. And so you can actually add like you can add like more walls of security. You can add secure, which only allows HTTPS browsers only, right? You can do same site scripting, which I believe is if you activate the same site, then usually what hackers do is that they go into their own website and they basically target your website and they send kind of like a bot to read over the cookies and come back. So if you activate, I believe, same site, what it does is that it does not allow the hacker to actually like send the bot from another website to your website, right? And I believe the same party, I don't recall that being an option or what it does. I believe it uses like same thing as same site, similar, but in a different way. So that brings me to the 3 types of validators, right? So you have, let's see. So going back to this, just to finish this off, the local storage can hold 10, I believe that's megabytes. Yeah, no, is it? I think so. So this is the largest storage, right? It can hold a lot more. But the problem is that everything's accessible throughout the whole entire app. So if you have something that you don't want to, like you want people to access immediately, great for you. I will use local storage. If you want something that can be accessed but has to be erased after they close the browser, use the session storage. You know, and if you want like bigger security, then you use cookies. And so yeah, I went over this. So now there are two types of let me see, JWT. So what is a JWT? It's called a JSON Web Token. Okay, it's a standard token. Okay, this is a JSON Web Token. It's comprised of three different fields. So every time that you see the dots, it starts off the next field. The first one is going to be the header. The second one is going to be the payload. And the third one is going to be the signature itself. Okay. So what does that mean? So if you come in, right, and we say the header to be, so okay, so you can actually use an algorithm to actually edit them. It's called the Hs256 algorithm. You can look into that later. The payload is actually what we're passing, what we want to secure. So we can say this would be ID, right? And you can say ID of 534, I guess user 534, right? We want the name to be John Doe, right? And this gets auto-generated. Okay, so what does this all mean? Oh, and then you can come over here and you can add your secret. You can generate these secrets, right? Something long. That's all base 56, right? And so this would be for this user, this would be your JWT, your JSON Web Token. So what do you do with this JWT? If you come in, all right, let me show you how it works in the code. This is an example of what I created, right? After you get the user, right, this is for login. After you get the user, you come in and you actually create a user. Mind you, this is admin user, and now I'm creating a user, right? After we verified that all the information for the user is correct, we come in, we create an ID, a name, and I'm using role, right? And then I get all the information from the admin user himself, right? And I'm adding all these three fields onto a user, right? When you create a JWT token, you have to come in and say JWT.sign. You're basically signing the token you're validating the token, right? You're activating it rather, and you pass fields. Like here, I basically am passing the ID, name, and role, and then you pass the JWT secret. The secret is in here. I'm not gonna give it to you guys because that's my secret. And it's in the .env, right? But you basically name it refresh token secret, and you generate. It's maybe like 2 lines. You know, it's not that long, but you want to do it base 56. I think I can probably do it for this app, so I can just set it up for you guys. Right here. So if we go right here, we go right, and then we can do access token secret, right? And then there's a way to do it like create base 64 secret and VS Code terminal. Yeah. So you do super secret password. So the secret would look something like this, but no, this is not what I'm looking for. This is what I'm looking for. So you do base 64 insert. Okay, so there was a video that I saw that it basically just walks. It's a very simple process, but it's very necessary. Okay. Open, learn how to open a terminal. Create a minimal colorful terminal. Create JWT secret. Let's authenticate request. Yeah, here it is.
The best way to become a full-time.
And for some reason, oh yeah. Okay. So you come in and he starts doing it right around here. Okay. So he did. Yeah. So he's using bash. Okay. Yeah, so he's using bash. Okay, so just put it side by side. So you open up over here, you use git bash, then you type node, and you go into node.js, and here you're gonna type require crypto dot random bytes. Oh, it's going too fast. Random bytes 64 dot to string, and then we're gonna pass in the format of hex. This would generate a, see if he passes it as passes the whole thing. Yeah, except for, yeah. So all he does is basically you copy it and you paste it. This is our secret. Okay. I mean, for video purposes, I'm gonna change this by the end of the video. We're not supposed to show our secret. Okay. Like this has to be changed. You know, like you don't want anybody in the internet to know this at all. Okay. But this is how you create it. We can always go back to the video and then I'll change it. Okay. Now, this is your access token secret, right? This, if we go back to the other app, right? Yeah. So I'm signing basically the JWT token with this, and I'm basically calling it whatever I want. In this case, we're gonna call it an access token. Okay. Then we create a cookie. Okay, and then I believe we're using. Let me see something. We're gonna be using cookie parser. Okay, let me just add that to the project so that way you guys have it. Okay. The cookie parser basically intakes cookies, and we are able to put it into the app. Like no, sorry, I'm sorry, I said that wrong. The cookie parser comes in, it takes in the cookies, and it's actually able to read the value of that cookie, you know, in the server, and then it uses the like this secret to basically decode it. Okay. And so we need to actually install npm. Let me just go. It's good to check this. Let's see. Cookie parser. Okay. So basically, copy that. Okay. And now we have it in the dependencies, and now we're already activated here. Okay. Now we have to input app.use cookie parser. Okay. So that is I believe, before everything. So this is gonna read the cookies before everything in the app. Okay. And now, that's about it. That's how we activate the cookie parser. And then if we go down to, I guess, the sign up route, go to sign up route, we don't really need the cookie parser anymore because it's running across the whole entire app. And then, so for example, if we do login, right? After we check the whole entire login, which is check if it exists user. So we don't need this one. We don't need this one. We are going to user login. Yeah, we're gonna have to fix this one because here we are actually, I think Morris, I think you have the code. We just worked on it, right?
Yeah, do I send it?
No, but you're doing the forgot. No, we haven't done the login. Save that. Okay, so we don't have to save. That's wrong. I think I created this way earlier. I didn't really think about. I was just demoing you guys. Okay, so who has the login? I know one of you guys has it. Or login route, login. Okay, let me try to fix this real quick. So when we log in, right, it's going to be login user. Okay, so it's gonna be login user, correct? Okay, so it's gonna be login user, and we're gonna intake the values for. Let me speed this up a little bit. Login. Where's it? Give me just 1 second. Okay, so we're gonna intake these like this body. Okay, we're gonna intake the user and the password. Then we're gonna check. We're gonna create check if user exists in the database. Okay. And then we're gonna say something like const. I'm not gonna go through the whole thing for you guys. I think the next time that we meet, we should have this done, so I'm able to show you guys exactly what it does. But just to finish this for now, let's just do right here. We're gonna check user with a capital U. So maybe user with a capital U. So user exists. Okay. So what we're saying here is that check the user if it exists, right? We go into the database, onto this database right here, right? And we're basically going to check if this username matches this one right here. This username right here. Whatever gets passed. Okay. Now, if that does pass, okay, we're gonna say if user exists, right? Then we're going to encrypt it. Okay. Encrypt. Okay, and after that encryption, we're gonna check check if the password given. We're going to encrypt the password. Encrypt password given. Check if encrypted password matches the password in the database. Okay. And then I can just show you guys this example right here. Okay. So for this one, I'm creating the admin user, right? So right here, I'm going into the database and I'm checking first the username, if it matches. If it does message, this constant is going to be created. Then I check if this admin user exists. Okay, I go in and I encrypt the current password, and I basically check for the encrypted password in the database. Then I match them, right? If it does not match, then I'm sending a 422 code back that says wrong username or password combination, right? But if it does match, then I'm basically creating what I told you guys. I'm basically using the fields that are gonna be, and I can just show you this right here. Okay. So let me see. Yeah. Okay. This works. Okay. So this is the encrypted password in the database. Okay. And this is the username. What I'm passing right here is the ID. I'm passing the username, right? And I'm passing the role. In this case, the role for this database is manager. Okay. So now I create these tokens and I sign them with 2 secrets that I have in the back. Okay. You can send the JWT on its own. You can send it like that. But then you run the risk that somebody's going to come in and it's going to steal them. And they're going to use it to log into your application. So the way I did this with a little bit of extra care, I created the cookies, right? When you do REST cookie, it creates the cookie. You don't have to send it. It sends on its own, right? You call it whatever you want to call it, and you pass the value that you want to pass into that cookie. So here I'm nesting JWT within a cookie. So if we put it into perspective, right? Excalibur, I love this website, right? So this is the cookie, right? And I'm using the JWT. Oh no. So the JWT cookie. So this is the cookie, and it equals to let's call this axis. This is the axis cookie, right? Within it, I'm passing the JWT in this case, and you can do this. You can nest them, right? And this would be the JWT cookie, the JWT, sorry, and the JWT. Oh, the JWT holds. It holds the ID, right? The ID. It holds the username, and it holds the role in this case. Okay. So why am I doing this like this, right? Because let me just show you one way that of how things would change if I were to use. See. How can I show you guys? Okay, so I could actually send this refresh token right here I can send it back to the front end, right? I'll wait for my server to restart. It's gone. There you go. So if I come over here, right? What time is it? Okay. I can come over here and I could say, that's not it. Right here, right? So I want you guys to pay attention to this bar right here, like the console. Okay, so if I do admin, oh, you put it the wrong way. Okay, here you see that I'm actually passing the token, and this is how you're supposed to pass it. You're supposed to pass the token to the front end, and then the front end could actually input this. In this case, it could put it as a local storage or a session storage. Let me see if I can do that for you guys. Let me see on the home. Right here. Right here, and it would be redirect, true, right about here. It would be local storage dot set item, and it would be it has to be the string, so you want to call this, you're gonna name it something, right? Let me name this example, right? And then it would be obtaining it from res dot data dot let me see how it was cleared. Correct. Okay, so that would be from, let me see what I'm sending, refresh token. Okay, so yeah, so there you go. This allows me to set the refresh token to the local storage. So right here. So if I do this again, you see? So that's on the local storage now. Mind you, this cannot disappear. If I were to close this window right here, right, and I do localhost, that cookie should still, that JWT should still be there. Look at that, right? That's bad. I don't like that. I mean, it all depends how you do it. But then you could do session storage, right? So there you go, session storage. So now this should appear on the session storage. Right. Now we have the key. And now we have the example, which is the token that I sent in the session storage. This should get deleted as soon as I close this browser right here. So let's say localhost. If I check, it's not there anymore. Okay. So you could actually plan different types of applications according to how you want the authentication to be done. Okay. And so that brings me to the last, I mean, I don't fully remember how to do it, but it's called a session. So you have session storage and you have sessions, which don't confuse them, okay? But they're not similar at all. Okay. So what's a session? Session is basically how can I say it? Where's that session? Okay, so I have some of the example code right here in the server. So it's right here. Okay. So then you create a session, right? I think it's not gonna run. Oh, it is. Awesome. Oh, because I have the session. Okay, so for this, you would need the session and you would need express sessions. So, I mean, I focus mostly on using JWTs and cookies, but you can actually, a session is basically, it remains on for as long as given time. So for example, if you, here we could pass a key, right? In this case, like the key is the name, right? It's usually called SID, usually. Okay, so if you ever go into a website and you see SID, that means session ID. Okay, it has a secret, which it would be the same as for what we built right here. This secret, okay, you can just pass, that. Okay, and then we put a resave because I believe resave is forces the session to be saved back into storage. So when you log into an app, you know, you have the resave option, which I believe is to create a session regardless or not you have been logged in or not. Okay, I think that would be in most cases used for guest, like a guest user. Okay, so that's where that would be mostly used. Oh, saved uninitialized. It's basically forces the session uninitialized to be saved onto the store. So it's the same. It's what I just told you right now. So it basically saves it without having the need to log in. And then this saves the session, save back the session to store. So basically, if it gets deleted, you know, unless you really want to use a session, don't use it. But the good thing about sessions is that you can actually pass cookies, and you can pass HTTP only cookies, right? And you can actually set the expiration as well, which is good. You can actually store many different cookies within one single session. And they would mostly appear right here under cookies. Okay. So how do we actually do a session? And I believe, if I remember correctly, we can actually probably do it right here. We could do a session. And let me see the parameters it takes. I think you have to do rest that session. Okay. And then let's see. Express, Node.js, session. Okay, so this is how you create it. And the way you do it is slash cookie secure true. You do session. Cookie true initialized. Okay, this is what we did. Okay, and then you technically have to do rec that session. No, you have to do rest that session. Oh, here it is. Session, and then this is what you pass. But this is not what I want. I'm sorry. Yeah, okay, I'm getting closer. It's rec that session. Where is it? Let me do this. See if it passes. one of these. I know for sure. Use, and no, let me look into another one, even though that's the official one. Okay. Okay. So I think it's cookie message. Resave false. Session ID, rec session. Okay, so yes, I think it's this. Session, rec session is ready. Here it is. If rec session equals to name password. It's a little bit complicated to say. Okay. Cookie path. So this is what technically what it would show up. Let me try to do one of these. Rec session destroyed, logout user. Let me actually try to do this. Okay, so the session, it would be called rec session. Okay, and then the rec session equals to user. Actually, that's what it would. No, I need a better example. That's a minute session emoji and stress. Okay. Content use, secret, function, email. Okay, yeah. So you call it whatever you want here. Okay. And then press email equivalent. Get. Okay. If such that email redirect to admin. Session post, rec that session email. Okay, here it is. This is what I want. I'm sorry. So we're saying the session.email equals to rec_body.email. But in this case, we want the session.user. We just want the user, so body, rec.body. Just want to name it. So, actually, yeah, we can just avoid all this. And we can just say user, because we already have user here. So rec that session equals. Okay. And I believe that's all you need to do. It goes more into detail. I just don't remember. I did this a few months ago. I'm just trying to find a good example for you guys. But you guys get the idea. But for the most part, I want to continue if I can. This is the same website. I think if I actually don't even include it, press that session. Let's break that session. Here it is. Session. Okay. I think that's gonna pass. Yep. So let's check it out. It's probably not gonna work. No, it didn't. You have to set it up to. You have to do a few more things. I can probably show you guys another day. But you guys get the idea. It basically you can nest cookies within the session. And it's a little bit safer. You can still hack it. You can hack all of these options, but it makes it a little bit safer because you can actually store more than one cookie in it, and it's very useful. So then that brings me to the final authentication. So once you have the cookie set up, then you have to go through the authentication process. Sorry, give me just 1 second. All right, so so there's a whole process for collecting the what do you call it? There's a whole process for collecting. So okay, so let me just show you guys in a more visual way how this process goes. Okay, so you have the front end, and then you have the back end. Okay, front end or the client, right? And this will be back end. So, okay, so if we start this process right here, right? We create the nested cookie with the JWT, right? And we send it. Right? The front end catches it, so receives it, and basically does the it basically then, so right now the front end has, like, at this point, so if we create the nested cookie with the JWT and it sends it, right? The front end receives it, but cookies don't need to be accessed like I did it with the local and session storage. They don't need to be accessed. They basically form part of let me show you. So if you go to network, right, and you go to, I guess, the call, login in this case, they're being actually called within the set cookie header, right? You see right here the refresh, and you see here the access. That's how they're being received by the front end. Okay, so that's important. So now going back to this, the front end will then make an API call. Okay, make an API call, API request, rather, right? And the backend is going to receive. It's going to receive the request, and it's going to also check. It's going to also check for the cookies and verify them. Okay. Then, if this is true, so if this is true, so it's true, then the API call is going to be so what's going on? I can't get rid of it. Okay, I can't get rid of it. Okay, sorry about that. Then the API call gets made, right? If it's true, then the API call, so it's made, and then it returns requested values. Right, so let's make this a little bit smaller. Let me just receive there. Yeah. So this is right there. And then the front end receives those values. This is the process that authentication happens in. Okay, when you create so let me just walk you guys through this. Okay, so if we go back over here, we're creating the JWT token when we're logging in, right? If the login is successful, right, then the front end is going to receive it. It's going to make an API call, and I can probably show you guys what the API call looks like. Where is it? Home, right? So the API call is this one, right? It's sending the user and the password, right? Then the server receives that call, then it sends the nested cookies, and then over here I'm verifying the cookies, right? Like I make an API call request, and this is I'm trying to get a value, right? Or you can do a post or whatever that you want. Doesn't have to. It's not restricted. Okay. And then I'm trying to get login equals to true. That's what I want in order to continue the next phase. Okay. So then I make this call to the API, to the server, and then the server is going to receive it, right? Mind you, this is authentication login, but this is a GET request. So if we go to authentication, login, and GET request, right? This is this call right here. Mind you, it's going to return if like I'm using Authenticate token first, and that's what I'm calling before APIs that I want to authenticate, right? So I come in, I log in, I use the login equals to true only if this passes first, which is going to receive the request and check the cookie to verify them. Okay, so if we go over here to verify the cookie, I'm checking the headers, and mind you, it's not really done like this, specifically like this, but I'm using HTTP only cookies, which cannot be read by JavaScript on the front end. Okay, there's a different way that you could do it. When you want to pass cookies as a like on the headers, and for those cases you pass the cookie in the authorization header. Okay, that's typically the right way to do it, that everybody does it. I didn't want to go that route because I wanted to pass HTTP only cookies, right? So I'm checking the cookie header, right? It's checking the header, right? If the header exists, then since we're passing two cookies, right? Since we're passing the refresh and the access cookie, right? Let's see, like this is gonna be one single string, right? So I separate it and I collect the access cookie. Okay, if this is true, then let me just show you guys so that way you guys get a better idea, because you guys won't see it. Move this. Okay, MWMMXA. Okay. Token not present. Ah, this is exactly what I meant, what I ran into the other day. Yeah, like earlier. It's because I logged in as a user. Okay, hold on. Let me delete this. I have to open up a new incognito mode. I think Diana got to see this earlier. Host. Okay, inspect. I go to application. before I do that, let me just show you guys the headers. Console.log header exists. Okay, that'll show me the headers. Okay, okay, there you go. 0 and G 4 and okay. Oh, no. So this is not what I wanted to show you guys. Let's delete these. Sorry. Okay, so admin password 1, 2, 3 NTIXHI. Ah, why? Oh, it's because I'm still passing this. Wait a second. Verify token. It's because I forgot to take this off. So with that from one side, and then I also have to take out the session. There you go. This should work. Now then I have to delete all my cookies. P4AIQR. Serious. Oh, this is so Diana, if you're there, this is exactly what I meant earlier. You see how the refresh actually comes in before the access?
Yeah.
Yep, that's exactly why I did this. So that sucks. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I just have to change this to a 1. But yeah, I have to like learn how to fix it. Okay, so now you guys will be able to see it. And then this. Ignore this code. Oh, I have to fix that later. But this is gonna work. Okay, so V4 and J4G. Okay, so if you see right here, I get the refresh token and the access token. This is one single line, right? So I want to split it where there's a space right here. Okay, then I take in the second value. Even though it says 1, this will be the 0 value, like the index of 0, and then this will be the index of 1. So I want to take the access token. Okay, then I come in and I pass this value that I got. I slice it at the 7th at the 7th character, which is this one right here. So all I want, I don't want the access equals. I want just basically like the value, this value right here. Okay, then I come in and I basically pass it into a rect access token, which is like a value that I'm passing for the request, right? And then I come over here and I pass the rect access token, right? And I compare it to the access token. So right here, I'm not signing it, I'm verifying it. Okay, and then I'm passing a function. If auth data, meaning that it passed, then if it's auth data, if it passes, then I say console access token valid, right? Which is access token valid, right? And then I pass the rec user to be auth data, right? And then if that is true, it goes on to the next one. So we use next to basically continue a call. The call does not stop. If you don't use next, then the API call stops when it's done. If you use next, then I can actually go into auth, and remember how we wanted this to be the call that we want. It continues after authentication token. It continues on, and if authorized, meaning that it passed, then console.log user, which is this. This is how I verified, and we return logged in, and that's how I'm able to log in. I mean, so whoever creates this, I'm gonna help them. I'm probably gonna do it myself because it's a little bit complicated. But if somebody's up for the challenge, then I can definitely help you guys. It's a good thing to learn. It's probably gonna take some time, because even mine is not even perfect. You know, like mine is confusing. So if I delete my cookies right here, trust tokens. So if I delete my cookies, it was working perfectly fine earlier. Let me see something. Yeah, it was working perfectly fine earlier, and then now it decided to just switch into how it is right now. I don't get it how, I don't get why, but it does. Anyway, yeah. So that's how you authenticate. And if basically if it tries to authenticate the access token, so the way this set is going way over time right now, but let me try to just teach you guys the full concept of what I try to do. It's called refresh access tokens. So you have two tokens. You have an access token, right? And then you have a refresh token. Okay, so and then you have the website. Right. So this is called using refresh access tokens. Okay. The way it works is that when the website creates an access token and a refresh token, right, as cookies, then this is, so now they're set, right? But in order for you to log into the website, you need an access token. However, the access token expires in 15 seconds. Okay. While the refresh token expires in 24 hours. Okay. So if this one expires so quickly, then this helps us to actually prevent hackers from hacking. Like they can hack us, but they won't have enough time to implement malware. Okay. So what we do is that if the access token expires, then we actually use the refresh token to create a new access token. Okay. So creates access token. Okay, and that's how this loop works. It's very simple. Okay, if we set both, and then if the access requires, then we use the refresh. However, if the refresh and if the refresh expires and the access expires, then we log out the user. Okay. If none of these exist, then we log out the user. And that's how the process that I'm doing right here. So I'm checking for the access token. I'm verifying it. If it verifies, great. If it doesn't verify, then we check the refresh token, right? And the refresh token is going to allow us to the refresh token is going to allow us to basically create a new access token, right? We create a new access token, we sign it, we create a new cookie, and we basically use it to verify it again, and then we use this to create a new valid access token, and then we continue the process with next. Okay. So it's a little bit weird. This is not how it's intentionally used at first. You see some videos, they're not going to show you this like this, because usually it's being passed through the authorization header. But then like, I'm coming in and I'm slicing everything, and I'm doing everything manually. But that's not how it's done. Okay. So this covers validation and authentication. Okay. So I'm going to be pushing this piece of code right here with the validation and the handler and the sign up with one single body for validation, and this will be for the user login. You know, that's kind of the process that we just went through. And yeah, we don't have to go that deep. You know, we could probably create like a simple authentication, but that's kind of like the process of authentication goes. Okay.
I have a question. You know how there's so many things to do just to get it running. Is there like some kind of list, and maybe somebody in the world wrote a list and said, hey, when you're making a website, you're gonna go do this and this and this, like a checklist? You know, like that'd be nice.
No.
Maybe.
From what I've seen, from my experience, nobody teaches you this. You kind of just have to like learn as you go.
Like I feel like I'm, you know, like I'm listening to everything you're saying, and it's like it's been so much that we've done already. That's like I should have started like bullet point to bullet point, you know, step by step.
I completely agree with you, and just look at my application. I mean, just the front end itself. Like, look at all this, and this is only the base of just and I mean just my CSS. Like, I don't separate my CSS yet, but I'm gonna separate it, which is right, and it goes on and on and on and on, right? On top of that, and that's just front end. And the back end, it's all like I didn't know about models until I basically I started researching it. The verified token was the biggest headache. You know, so there's two ways to do authentication. There's a simpler way to do this, a way simpler way, which is using something called OAuth. So it's a dependency, right? That makes your life a lot easier. But then if you know how to if you know how the authentication process goes, so it'll help you a lot down the line when it comes to like debugging OAuth, for example. So OAuth, it's like this. Let me log out. This is OAuth, actually. Logging in with Google. That's part of, I think it's OAuth 2, but it's basically the same concept. You basically are using like Facebook or Google to like log into your account, you know? But if you skip the process, in my opinion, if you skip the process of actually understanding how authentication works, you're doing yourself a big disservice. Because when it comes to actually debugging or actually understanding how the whole authentication process works, if you don't understand it, you're gonna struggle down the line. So that's in my best opinion, you know. Yeah, so auth is basically like the client is over here. You basically ask like the server, basically you use like, hold on, right here. So the application goes in and authorization request. It goes through the OAuth and authorization granted. It's a lot more simpler, and it stores, I think it uses sessions to store all your user, but it's actually more secure in quotation marks. People say it's more secure, but I think it's in a way more secure because there's actually a whole company like backing you up, like they're doing the whole process for you. But you could do the process yourself if you start understanding more about sessions, cookies, and tokens. You could do the whole process yourself like this, like what we talked about. This is already pretty secure, but there's way more layers of security that you have to add. You know, like this is just to keep security. Like a hacker will break the front end easily, but you want to maintain the back end as secure as possible. And for example, if we add this is a pretty good layer of security. On top of that, we're doing validation, which is good. And I believe we're gonna be doing. I don't think we're gonna be doing it for this app. It's called Honeycomb Technique. The Honeycomb Technique, I believe, is it's like nesting a server within a server within a server. I believe. I was just talking to a hacker a few nights ago, and he explained it to me. And so it's basically like putting layers within a server, so that way a hacker doesn't really ever get to your server, even though if they're able to bypass all of this, they won't be able to get to your server unless they actually like bypass like the nested servers. It's like layers on top. So it's like we're layering this server in security, you know. And so you can do it all yourself. That's the reality of it, but it takes a lot of work. And like to answer your question, there's no guide that will teach you this. There's a
Well,
bunch.
this is like when you mentioned, I think it was like when we started, you said we don't want to use Google authentication or CAPTCHA or something like that because they cost money. But you said you were working on something, so that's the whole.
Yeah, so I do my own. I do my own CAPTCHA. So I created my own. Like obviously through I started seeing a bunch of documents online, but this is
Yeah.
CAPTCHA. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's not. I believe it's not readable by TypeScript. I think it is.
Really? It looks like regular text.
So like I made it non-selectable. So
Okay.
it's so they like a software can come in and they can actually gather it. But
Yeah.
then I realized that if you come over here, you can actually see it. You see? You can,
Nice.
so it's not full bulletproof, but it adds to the magic of like, hey, I'm not a robot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So and then if you really want to make this secure, you would have to make this into an image, not a text, because a bot can't read an image. And so you want to add layers of security. Like developers don't talk about security enough. So this is a very good topic, and something that, if you want to learn for yourself, it's amazing, but it's a lot of work just to get like these concepts down. It takes a lot of work. If you've never seen anything like this, or if you ever wonder what cookies are or what but if you do end up understanding it, down the line, if you go into any website, you can actually check what cookies are being added. Like for example, like what type of authentication a website is using. So, and it's very useful because then you're actually able to understand, oh, so like they're using this, and this and that. So right here, you're using cookies. And then you see they're using sessions, a bunch of sessions. Session CAD, session cookie ID. You see? They're using a bunch of sessions. And so, and then you see how they're like, oh, some of them are secure. None of these cookies are HTTP only. None of them. So that means that the front end is passing the cookies to the back end. So a hacker can come in and he can actually do some damage. But they're also using local storage. They're also using session storage. So you see, and that's how, like the purpose of using cookies and session and local storage is because as you're moving in the app, the app is supposed to, like, you want the app to to keep track of who you are. Okay, so for every API call, the app is going to, if you're storing them in the local storage, the app is going to actually tap into the local storage, and it's actually going to get the values. It's going to decrypt. It's going to decrypt the value, the token or whatever, and it's going to use it as the header right here as the endpoint. So we could actually say, you see, S-track ID. So it's going to put that value into there, whatever the value it gets from decoding the token. That's why we want to actually, that's why we need to understand this. This is what it actually keeps you within the app. If you take all of these away, or like whichever is the one, the session ID, you know, if you take that away, the app is going to log you out because it has no way of keeping track of you. That's a cool part about it, but it's a little bit mind breaking. It's gonna take you guys a little bit to understand. You know, I'm here to help you guys, but that's how we're gonna keep our users tracked across the entire app. So that's the beauty about like authentication. You know,
That's pretty sick.
it's a lot. It's a lot. I don't expect you guys to get this the first time, the second or third. This is gonna take a while. You know, if it took me a whole month and I learned very quickly, it's like this has to be constant learning, you know, because you're gonna confuse, and mind you, this is gonna happen. You're gonna confuse a JWT with a cookie, and then unless you realize that we're nesting the JWT within the cookie, then you're like, okay, but then you're gonna realize then what does the three dots mean? And then you're gonna go back to the video. You're gonna realize it's the payload, it's the header, and the secret itself. Then sessions. Are we using any sessions? No, we're not. How do we pass the value? These are all questions that are going to come up, and then we're going to be tackling them one by one, you know, and it's not easy. It's not easy at all, but it is very rewarding. Okay, so I'm just telling you guys, I'm just telling you that right now, because you can, with this knowledge, you can build any app, literally any app. And that's how you keep, like I said, that's how you keep your users locked in, which is the crazy part. Okay, so that, I don't want to overwhelm you guys more, but
I want to ask something. Oh, did you close the check? Did you just close it?
no, I didn't close it. I'm using
I
it.
feel like every time I don't know if I noticed before, but like every time you refresh, I think it changes like that last. Can you try to refresh it? Like yeah. Did it change?
So you see, it actually got like you see, resource blocked by client. And a lot of things are happening here. The cookie, so it's using you see, this is my school ID, which I shouldn't be giving it out, but yeah, like that's how you're able to communicate in an app, you know. And then this is what the value that's getting, you know, and this is what's passing into the front end. So the front end is keeping track of me in the app this way. Okay, and so if you actually compare this, we can probably find some of these numbers here. So fee ID, routing hierarchy. So EC5F1D1, EC5F1D1. Some of these values have to be here. So you can actually identify EC5, IF5, no. It has to be one of these. The cookie value RIO wrapper. So they're using another library here. Data. Get school ID, an array of 1. Data. So this is the actual, oh, here it is. Wait, I thought I saw it. D1. So one of these values is encrypted, they're decrypting it, and they're putting it in the front end. So that's how it works, you know. It's, mind you, it's a little bit complicated. This was a very quick overview, but I gave you guys a lot of examples. So if you guys have any questions ever, just basically just hit me up, and then I'll keep explaining it over and over again. Okay. Who just called me? What? then but yeah, so let me save this and then I'll push it to no, this is mine. Oh yeah, this one. So let's see, so added validation and authentication. Okay, and with that said, I'll leave you guys. Okay,
Okay, thank you. Have a great night.
good night.
Thank you.